Hi there, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So as you can see, I'm wearing a bassinet, sometimes called a hung skull or a pig-faced bassinet. This is one of my relatively recent purchases. I've actually owned a couple of these types of helmets in the past, but this is a better quality one, so I'm ditching the old stuff and I'm upgrading to a better one. I'm not wearing full armour because I'm just shooting a video. Indeed, I am going to show you more and more armour, as I have been promising to do for about the last 3 years. But here you go, this is a piece of armour and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. First of all, I want to recommend the Knight Errant channel, Ian Lespina's channel. He goes into a huge amount of depth about pieces of armour like this. In fact, he has a helmet not dissimilar to this one. And I am not attempting in any way to approach that level of detail, and in fact what I'm going to talk about here is only a few, I'm just going to touch on a few aspects of this type of helmet. So first up, the first thing I really want to mention about this kind of helmet is that, so it was in use in the latter part of the 14th century, so we're really talking about, for this kind of classic type with that shaped visor, we're probably talking about the 1360s-ish through to, it was used up until about the mainstream anyway, up until about 1430-ish, after which really great bassinets became more common, and in fact, and that's really in England and France, and then in other bits of Europe the sallet started to take over from about 1430, 1440 onwards. And indeed the armet as well. In Italy the armet came in, and we've talked about this topic a bit previously when I've been talking with Toby Capwell, looking at effigies. So this helmet really was in its heyday around the year 1400, so we're talking about 1380s, 1390s, 1410s, 1420s. This is the kind of heyday of this kind of helmet, and it was actually a pretty much universal type of helmet that was popular right the way across certainly Western Europe and some of Central and Eastern Europe as well, and a very successful helmet and very successful design. Now one of the, I'm only going to mention a few aspects. I'll do other videos talking about this type of helmet in the future, but I just want to mention a few what I consider headline things to note about this kind of helmet. The first thing is, I'm talking to you with the visor up. You will notice that at the side, where are they? There we go. At the side you can see pivots and what looks like a hinge with a removable pin. So that I don't waste time in the video, I'm not actually going to do that, but the pins pull out and the visor comes off. Why would that be the case? Well, firstly, we know that in some cases bassinets or bascinets, I'll call it bassinet, bassinets were sold with more than one visor. Now clearly you might have a different type of visor for jousting in than you might want to fight on foot in, and indeed for fighting on foot for different types of scenarios, say tournament fighting versus battlefield fighting, you might want different types of visor as well. So being able to change out the visor is a really useful thing. But actually more than that, being able to remove the visor is also a super important thing. Now when I did a video recently where I wore a brigandine, a lot of people went, "Oh Matt, but isn't your neck quite exposed?" And this actually, if you think about this in a wider context, is a ridiculous observation. First of all, I would usually wear a male collar, known as a standard, with that brigandine. But even if I didn't, the fact that my neck is exposed is completely irrelevant really when you consider that the entirety of my face was exposed, and my arms and my legs. Now my arms and my legs and my face are far easier to hit with either a thrown or shot missile, or with a weapon. Certainly anybody who does HEMA on a regular basis will know how often arms get hit, and indeed legs, in certain clubs. Certainly in my club I target legs quite a lot. So arms and legs are far easier to hit in general than someone's face, because people are naturally, we've evolved to protect our faces and throats quite well. People's flinch response is to do this, is to protect this with the arms. And legs, of course, it's harder to defend legs because they're further away from your shoulders and from your arms. So if you're wearing just a helmet and a brigandine, of course you're going to have other bits of your body which are vulnerable. But you're still wearing a helmet and a brigandine. You're still protecting two of your vital targets, your big internal organs and your brain, okay? So that's really, really important. But why have an open face helmet? Well, quite simply because being able to see and breathe is of enormous benefit on a battlefield, okay? Now, you could say if I'm going to fight in combat at the Battle of Agincourt, then clearly I want to have my visor down. Or do I? You now can't hear me so well, I can't hear around me so well, and I can't see very well, okay? Now this helmet is fairly typical of bascinets, of pig-faced bascinets of the end of the 14th, beginning of the 15th century, and you will notice it has two vision slits, what are usually considered vision slits anyway, here, which I can see slots out of. Then I've got what are traditionally known as breaths or breathing holes on this side. In actual fact, I can see out of those. I don't have any on this side because this is the side that's most likely to get hit by heavy weapons like poleaxes and stuff, because most people are right-handed, most people predominantly swing with the most power and most often from their right-hand side. So this side doesn't have the breaths in it. And additionally, if I'm advancing into archers, for example, who are shooting at me, I've got my full plate on. I might even have a pavis or a shield as well, and I'm advancing into them. If I have the advantage of a completely enclosed side of my visor, I can actually, instead of advancing straight on into them like this, I can turn sideways onto them, and now those vision slits are covered. Dung, 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 dung. All I've got is a little slot here, and the chances of an arrow getting through there are minimal. However, once I get into hand-to-hand combat, if we look in the manuscripts, if you go to the absolutely awesome website Manuscript Miniatures and search on there, you will see that huge proportions of people engaged in hand-to-hand combat either have their visors up or their visors removed, or they have a bassinet which doesn't have any means for attaching a visor at all. Lots of bassinets shown in manuscripts do not seem to have any pivot points. And if you look on English knightly effigies, I've spoken about this with Toby Capwell from the Wallace collection previously, a lot of English effigies and brasses don't seem to have any attachment points for visors. I'll talk a little bit more about that specific point in a future video. But essentially, if I'm fighting, even if I'm covered head to foot in plate armour and the gaps being covered by mail, okay, with padding underneath it, even then it is still often, and evidently was historically, beneficial to raise the visor and fight with an open face, because quite simply, when I've got this down, my vision is crap. Okay, I can't really see what's going on down here. I can see a bit through this kind of what looks like a smiley mouth at the bottom there, and I can see a bit through here, but I can't see very well at all. Okay, these slots are not particularly close to my eyes. So not being close to my eyes means that I am literally looking through slots like this. It's not like the slots are right next to your eyes, but they're actually a distance away from them. So it's like looking through a letterbox, but not close to the letterbox, a little bit further away from the letterbox. So in actual fact, your vision is hugely restricted, not just your vision as well. Heat. One of the things I find worse, the worst things about wearing armour, is the heat. I don't mind the weight, I don't mind the movement restriction that you get, I don't mind all of these things, but I frickin' hate the heat. You get so hot, you really cook inside full plate armour because the air can't get out. You've got a degree of padding, not very much, but a degree of padding and clothing underneath the armour, then some mail, either in voiders and in certain places, or a full mail shirt in some cases, and then plate over the top of that. And that blocks in a lot of the heat, and of course your heat can't escape your head either. This is a completely forged solid steel, in this case hardened carbon steel, dome on top of your head, and all the heat gets trapped in there, and this is full of padding as well. So your head gets, your entire body gets hot, and it's not easy for that heat to escape. You open this, you can breathe, you can get some air in. It's even just wearing a helmet, not wearing any of the rest of the armour. Just standing here, my face feels a lot cooler than the rest of my head. So heat breathing, vision, sound. These are incredible benefits to gain on the battlefield for the sacrifice of having an open face. And yes, indeed, it does make you more vulnerable. But remember also, once you're in hand-to-hand combat, you're not generally having missiles shot at you or thrown at you because, of course, the enemy team or the enemy side, the enemy army, would be more concerned about hitting their own men, so they tend not to shoot directly into melee. So once you're in a melee, the only thing you've got to worry about really is hand weapons. And actually, you're probably more likely to be able to see attacks coming in and see threats with an open face than if you've got this down. Now, if you've got the visor down, that might protect your face. But now, suddenly people can grapple you from the side or smack you in the side of the head with a poleaxe. I can't see here. I can't see my hands. Okay? Raise the visor. I can see my hands. So you've got to think about armour in context. I know it's the word that I use all the time, but it's not simply about covering all of your body with steel sheet. Okay, you also have to be able to move. You have to be able to get on and off a horse. You have to be able to fight, and fighting is extremely energetic. Most people get very tired fighting in our normal light sparring gear when we're not wearing any armour at all. You need to be able to march and advance, push if you're in a press, you know, when it essentially becomes like a giant rugby scrum. You need to be able to stay on your feet, not fall over. If you do fall over, you need to be able to get up again easily. You need to be able to access your weapons. If my spear gets broken or my poleaxe gets knocked out of my hand, I need to be able to draw my sword out to carry on fighting or to get my rondel dagger out. I need to be able to do these things. I need to have manual dexterity, full movement. I need to not overheat. I need to be able to breathe, and I need to be able to see and speak. If someone says, this line's collapsing, we need more men over here, I need to be able to hear that, and I need to be able to respond. I'm bringing men now. These are the kind of contexts which soldiers operate in when they're actually in battle. And it's not only about being as physically covered as you can be. You have to be able to function as a soldier as well. And that's why often people elected to not cover themselves with as much armour as they could. And very often, even in the age when they were wearing the most armour, so the late 14th century and probably the first half of the 15th century, even then, they often fought with their visors up, with open faces, or with no visor at all. That's the main point I wanted to make in this video, but I will be talking more about these helmets in future videos. Cheers, folks. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, follow us on Facebook. You can buy t-shirts through Spreadshirt, support us on Patreon, or follow us on Pinterest. Thank you.